All right, all right. Guess what? We've got George Eure here with us today. George Earl Eure.
Yeah, yep.
George Earl Eure from Gates County, North Carolina. 86 years old, be 86 in 3 months, and
No,
has been farming all his life here. And so, George, thanks so much for joining us here today on Straight to the Heart. We're glad to have you.
my pleasure.
Yeah. So, we had Ed Miller from Miller Farms, one of the Century Farms here in Gates County, the other day. And I know you work with the Miller boys a lot and have been a blessing to them, and they're great friends of yours. So he was saying that with different marriages and different family, that farm has been operating for 9 generations. How long back is farming something that your family's done for many generations, or your dad or granddad was the first one to start? When did farming start into your family?
It started with my daddy when he was probably, well, he went to school in the first grade, and the second grade he said it went 3 days. And his daddy lived at Cypress Chapel, North Carolina.
Okay.
And Mr. Parker lived on 13. You probably know Mary Parker's his son.
That's right.
He was taking children in and feeding them and working them. And
Okay.
it was hard times, and my daddy said his daddy put him over there. And it was
So almost like a boarding home for children.
Yeah.
And they would work the farm there.
Yeah, worked the farm there.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
he was about 7 years old, when he went there. But that wasn't unusual.
Right.
Back in them days.
Yeah, child labor was kind of,
yeah.
and what do they call it? Apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Where you learn from somewhere else.
Yeah.
They raised you and taught you a trade.
Yeah. And once a month, Mr. Parker would let Daddy have a horse and cart to drive back to Cypress Chapel.
To see his family.
To see his family.
Oh, wow.
And he said it would take 7 or 8 hours to get there with a horse and cart.
How long did that drive take today?
With a car?
Yeah.
Oh.
About 10, 15 minutes?
No, it take from 13 to Cypress Chapel, I'd say 35, 40 minutes.
Is it that far? Okay.
Yeah.
So 30, 40
it's
40
right off
minutes.
of 32.
Okay, he's got to get over to 32 and go up.
It's right there.
Yeah. So a 30-minute ride today was a 7-hour horse and buggy ride back then.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Daddy taught himself to read and write.
Okay.
And he did a good job of it.
Okay. So he wasn't illiterate then?
No.
Okay.
And he could build anything in the world. He was farming, and he had a colored guy that helped him. And of course, when I got 9 or 10 years old, I was in the field 10 hours a day to ply the mule.
Okay.
And I didn't think nothing of it.
Right.
I thought it was just the way life was.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But all back at the same time in them days growing up, my granddaddy on my mama's side was in the bed with arthritis.
Okay.
And he lived about a half a mile from where we lived, and Mama was up there every day in the afternoon.
Take care of him.
And at night, he helped Grandmama to take care of him.
So now, you're all right. So your grandfather on your dad's side, they fell on hard times and let their son go to this boarding house.
Yeah.
So what was his? Do you know? Did you ever find out what his career was? What he did for a living?
He done trapping and done carpenter work.
Okay, so he was kind of self-employed.
Yeah. And my daddy was a good carpenter. He actually built horse and carts for horses.
Yeah.
And he actually made the wheels, and that, it takes talent to do that.
Yeah, there's like the wooden spoke wheels.
Yeah,
he would make those.
He made those.
Yeah, that's a lost art.
It was a sawmill right there behind gates, and that's where he worked at part time. He farmed there too. But let me get back to about me growing up a little.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, just we're trying to get the family background there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was just a purebred young'un. That's all it was to it. And right behind my granddaddy's house, it was a path, and 2 more young boys lived up there by the same age. And every night, we was up and down that path, and we could get in more trouble. I remember one night we had a rain, and it was it was a sandy path, and we come up with the idea of making a picture of a man.
Okay.
I'm talking about we laid him out there with his legs, his arms, his face, and everything. And he punched his eyes in and those. I'm talking, we done a first class job. And their daddy was a drunk, and he come home by 12:30 that night. And he was right in the house, he was hollering, "Ida, that was the way." And then, "Get up here, young ones, y'all get up. I done run over somebody down there." So they went down there. And I mean, we had a picture of a nice man that
Right,
night.
right.
Led him the whole way across the path. And of course, the boys got spankings. My mama won't let me miss like these, so I got a spanking too.
Now, how many kids were in your family?
Huh?
How many children in your family? How many siblings you have?
I had one brother.
One brother. Okay. Was he in on it?
No, he was about 4 years older than I was.
Okay. Okay.
He was a little bit on the sick side.
Okay.
When he was growing up. Well, that same path, it was a watermelon patch right side of it. And we looked down there one day, and Mr. Brown was pulling watermelons. So we decided that night, we're going to get us a watermelon. Well, Mr. Brown set us up. The path was lower than the field, but the ditch was probably 10 inches deep. You know, it wasn't really just little, it wasn't much of a ditch there.
Yeah.
So we crawled up there, and we had noticed there's a place there in the bushes about a foot wide, looked like somebody had been going through. So that's where we chose to go in at, you know. And we grabbed the first thing we could with three of it, me, John Everett, and Tim Langston. Got back in that path and slammed them thing on that dirt, and they would not bust. You couldn't bust them to save your life. We didn't know what it was. They were pie melons. I don't know where you ever heard talk of one or not.
No.
Looked just like a watermelon. And he had planted 2 or 3 hills in that field. He knew what he used.
So that's a hard melon. It won't. You can't eat it.
You can bust it on the highway, but on dirt you won't bust it.
Okay, gotcha.
And nobody never told me what to use them for.
Right.
But after a few minutes, I heard somebody in the bushes over there laughing. I could hear him laugh right there.
He was watching you
He
boys
was
out
sitting
there.
right there. Of course, we threw the melons in the ditch and run.
Right, right.
You know, and the next day, he brought 15 or 20 watermelons up there at Granddad's house and told them what had. Of course, they had a good laugh at it.
Yeah, yeah.
And said, tell the boys they could have all the watermelons, but there was still one go up in the field a little ways. So it's it was always made. I made a statement. Well, growing up, it was hard to go a whole day without getting in trouble. It was just hard to do. You know, always find something.
Always into something.
Always into something.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just the way I was.
Yeah. Now, didn't I hear about that when you were little like that? Didn't your dad make you a farming cart? Didn't you have one of them carts?
I had a billy goat and a little farming cart hooked to it.
A billy goat with a cart hooked to it.
And I'd buy that thing down to church sometime. Especially when they had vacation Bible school.
Yeah.
And it was one man and his wife, Judson Ellen, and his wife had a horse and buggy, and that's what they drove to church every day.
Okay.
And I'd tie my billy goat to the same tree. The churchyard there, Ronson churchyard, was full of maple trees.
Yeah.
And inside the church, the choir was on the left-hand side. You probably been in churches like,
yep.
And the front pew was about 8 foot long at the most.
Yeah.
And then the next one was 10 foot long. And for some reason, there was 4 or 5 boys in the church there. I was one of them. And for some reason or other, we always get on that second bench. And somewhere in the crowd, every Sunday, one boy was misbehaved. Just couldn't help
I knew it was coming, George.
Just could not help it. And my mama would get up and drag you out of church. And it was maple trees out there. The limbs were low, and she pulled a switch off of it. And I'm talking about if summertime you had shorts on, you went back in that church, your legs were red.
Your leg had stripes on it.
And she sit you right down inside of it. Now, it won't be all the time.
Right. It wasn't every time.
It won't be every time. A lot of times it was me, and no question about that.
Wait a minute. I want to go back to this picture. I can picture in my mind some 10-year-old kid riding a cart, a billy goat, driving to church on his own billy goat cart.
We didn't live about a half a mile from the church.
But that's amazing. That's just amazing.
Well, that's the way things was back in them days. And my mama had 6 brothers and 2 sisters, with 9 in the family. And 5 of the brothers went in the war, for World War II.
Yeah.
Now one of them never got hurt.
Wow.
That's kind of unusual.
That's unusual.
Five
That's right.
One family.
Yeah, that's right.
And 3 of them went to Blaine Newport News that way and started the insurance business.
Yeah.
And of course they had money, and
Hmm.
it was hard times right home. We didn't have no money,
Yeah.
and they come down to see Granddaddy on Sunday. The boys would bring electric trains and stuff like that, cap pistols, and best like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that make no difference. We made ours.
Right. Right.
Hey, ours was better than theirs.
So back at that time when you were a boy like that, how many of the roads here were still unpaved?
All of them right where I lived. Yeah.
It was all dirt roads back
All
then.
dirt roads back
Now,
then.
when I moved here 25 years ago, there were still probably 10% of the roads was unpaved, and they
Yeah.
paved them almost all of them since then.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that there was only a few paved roads back then. You were riding that little cart on dirt roads.
On dirt road, yeah.
Yeah.
It make no difference. The billy goat pull it.
The billy goat can pull it.
Yeah. Yeah. And they go down here with have vacation Bible school. At that time, it'd be a 75 or 100 children down there at church for vacation
Really?
Bible school.
Okay.
And you get there, ride by billy goat all right. Everybody loved that billy goat.
I can imagine.
You know,
Look, if I would have been a kid and one of my friends had a billy goat pulling him around on a cart, we would have all thought he was the coolest kid in town.
coolest kid in town. Yeah. Well, it's just amazing what I have seen in my life that folks have never seen. When I was probably 8 or 9 years old, a lot of times I was in the field plowing a mule.
Yeah.
And when you broke land back in them days, I think back this is just the craziest I've ever seen in my life. The turnply will break 6 inches.
So when so you're talking about walking behind a mule,
Yeah.
and he's pulling like a little
Ply.
plow, look at a little plow digging thing.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It would break 6 inches. So you didn't break a whole lot in today's time. But at the time I was 10 years old, I was in the field like doing that 10 hours a day, and I didn't think nothing of it.
It's just the way the family, the way you
the
live.
family was.
Yeah.
I was told if you wanted something, you had to work for it.
Yeah.
And this is one of the craziest things about him too. He was a grain sawmill right across the road in front of my house, and I
Okay.
was like 7, 8 years old. And one day I went up there and crawled on the sawdust pile and slid down. And the man that owned it was named Horace Easton. He said, "Son, if you'll do that, I'll give you 15 cents an hour." Because they had to send men up there to shovel it down every once in a while.
Right.
And so I
But
go,
you would climb it and it would make it come down.
Yeah. So I go to the house, pull the high board out of the cart. The high board in the cart was 2 foot by 5 foot.
Uh-huh.
And it was a bridle there with 2 that we weren't using no more. Used to have 3 horses, but just had 2. The one of them wasn't using. I took the 2 ropes off, took a bracelet bit, and bored a hole through it. Stuck a rope through there, tied a knot in it, tied the 2 ropes together. I crawled up on the sawdust pile, pulled that board up there, get on and slide down. I was bringing a lot of sawdust down there.
You were sleigh riding.
Yeah, I was enjoying it. It was fun to me, and I was getting 15 cents an hour.
15 cents an hour.
And I go down to the store on Friday afternoon after I got through working, and I get my little paycheck in cash, $1, $1, a quarter, something like that.
Yeah.
But what makes me so proud, and I think of it right now, on Sunday, I put a quarter in the offering plate that I made.
You could give that offering to the Lord.
Yeah. I give a quarter. If I work that week, I give a quarter to the Lord.
Amazing.
Amazing. I've been that way all my life.
Yeah.
I think back, I want to cry about it right now.
Yeah.
God trained me up from being a young'un to always tithe.
Invest in the kingdom of
I
God.
have tithed all my life.
Yes.
And me and my wife, we over tithe.
Right.
And God has always blessed us.
Yep.
But and when I was going to school,
So wait a minute. What would you buy? What would you buy on Friday when you get off work, got paycheck? What was a boy buying? Where would you go? What were stores around?
well, I was at a store. We got paid at the store.
I got paid at the store.
Yeah. And you probably see them, the little kits, little square candy kit called kits.
No.
Well, that was I saw had 4 to a pack. But in them days, it come 5 to a pack, and you get 2 packs for a penny.
Okay.
And BB
2 packs for a penny.
And BB bats. You ever see one of them?
No.
Y'all don't know what good candy is.
No, I don't.
And the BB bats coming in the flavor you wanted. And there was a penny a piece. It come with a stick on the end of it, and it was about 4 or 5 inches long.
Yeah. Would you get you a little Coca-Cola to go with them?
Yeah, but they won't put a nickel.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. When I worked, you gotta hear this. When I worked, and Daddy would give me a quarter when he went to town on Saturday, and there was a bill joint there called Jimmy Melito's, and you could go in that bill joint and get 2 hot dogs and a Pepsi Cola for a quarter.
Okay.
That's where my quarter went every time on Saturday when I went in town. I go in that beer joint and sit up on the stove with the boys drinking beer, with me and drinking beer. Order me two hot dogs and my Pepsi Cola.
So this wasn't a dry county back then.
But this was Suffolk.
Oh, in Suffolk.
This was
Okay.
downtown.
You went to the big city.
Yeah, I was in a big city.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, we go
gotcha.
to most every Saturday. Mom and Daddy would go.
Okay, all right. Okay, I missed that.
And
Yeah.
that's where I headed to with my quarter.
Okay.
And it was the best hot dogs I ever eat. The rolls were steamed and right soft. But I heard Jimmy tell a story one time. He was from Italy. I think it was a lie, but he says he moved from Italy to a husky and tried to farm. And the old clay land, he said, I couldn't do nothing with it. And the old horse I had, he said, I could tell the horse to get up and he'd back up. And he said, I got mad with the horse one day and I said, I ain't farming no more. So I took the horse in the field and dug a great big hole behind him and told him to get up. The horse fell in the hole and I covered him up and come to Suffolk and opened the hot dog stand. You know, I'm pretty sure it's a lie.
We hope it's a lie. He just covered the horse up with the Suffolk.
But I ate hot dogs in that place until it was actually closed. I ate hot dog there, I'd say 30 years ago.
Really? So was it downtown?
You know where the overpass goes across the railroad track there? It was right there on the left.
Okay.
That's where it used to be.
Yeah. Where the little park is now there. Yeah.
And right across the road from that was the livery stable where they bought and sold horses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But life has always been good to me. I couldn't talk when I grew up. I don't talk too good now. I stutter. And yeah, you see me stutter stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
But when I was young, I could not talk at all. And the young boys, they tried to tease me over, and God gave me the ability to don't pay them no mind.
Right. You didn't care a bit about what they said.
I worried about it a little bit, but after a while, it didn't bother me nothing that bit.
Right.
And I'd be in school, and it was in my high school class over at old school over here behind the church.
Yeah.
It was 26 in my high school class.
26.
And the teacher would ask me to read, and he'd stand up and read. I was sitting right there. I couldn't read. I couldn't pronounce the words.
Yeah.
And they finally figured out that, okay, ain't no need to call on him no more.
Right.
I was dyslexic, and they didn't know what it was back
didn't know what dyslexia was. Yeah.
I was a genius on anything to do with figures, algebra, geometry. It was real simple.
Okay.
To me. I mean,
So it didn't affect math and things like that. It was just you couldn't.
But I couldn't get nothing.
Couldn't put them words together.
I was a good friend with the principal. The first day at high school over there, I was 13 years old, and the library was sitting right side the principal's office. There's a great big window in the principal's office where he could see the library. The first day of school over there, he done this right here to me. And I said to myself, I like to get in trouble anyway. I said, I ain't done nothing. I ain't done nothing
yet.
This is the second period of school. I ain't had time to do nothing.
Right.
And I went in the office there. He looked at me. He said, George, I don't hide you my name. He said, George, can you drive? I said, yes, sir. He said, take my car and go downtown and get the paper and the letters for the church, for the post office.
Are you kidding me?
No, ma'am. I'm telling you all the truth.
The principal told you to take his car.
At 13 years old, he had a Dodge car with push buttons. I never seen one before. I got in there, what's going on here?
Right.
But I finally figured it out. And at that time, the post office was right across from where the bank is then.
Okay.
And it was a store right side of one by Mr. Walter Harrell. Well, you know, I go down there and got an hour. I'm going to that store and get me a drink and a cake.
Right.
I always been blessed, had a little bit of money with me.
Yeah.
And because I worked
working that mule, that's why.
I worked all my life.
Yeah.
And so I go in there, and I've been in there about 4 or 5 mornings, and I walked in there. There was the sheriff and a state trooper. I got my drink, and I tried to be kind of quiet. And the undertaker was named Paul Hoffler. And my brother was going with his daughter at that time.
Okay.
So he didn't like to talk. And I ended up talking to him. And the sheriff and the state trooper look at me and they didn't think not say nothing. The car parked right out there in front of them. They see me going like they get back in it and take off. Circle the block, go back to school. I done that for 4 years in school. I got the mail for the school.
You got to be kidding me.
No, sir. And me and the principal were good.
Did they
buddies.
graduate you?
Yeah. I graduated with it.
Okay.
I took world history 3 years in a row under the same teacher.
Okay.
Because I can't remember dates and names.
All right.
I'm that way today. I can't remember dates and names.
Okay.
I took it 3 years in a row and failed it. And Mr. Askey looked at me and said, "Don't worry about it. You'll pass it." I mean, they knew how I was. And the first year in that, it was a brand new school.
Hmm.
And in them days, they didn't have no lockers and seats or nothing. And the agriculture teacher, Mr. Paul, took a bunch of boys back there with timber, gonna build something. And he found out right quick, I was the only one that could drive a nail in them cinder blocks. But my daddy was a carpenter.
Right, you learned,
I
yeah.
learned. That's all there to it.
Yeah.
So for about 2 weeks in a row, I stayed back there. I never went to a class.
They put you to work.
Put me to work. And the whole time I was in school, and every once in a while, they put me to work.
That's interesting. So they knew that you were never going to be no English teacher.
Yeah.
So they said, you know what? He's going to work all his life here on a farm, which you ended up doing. So they weren't going to try to make you to be something you couldn't be.
Yeah, right. It took a while for them to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I didn't know I did the lectures until about 25 years ago. If you wanted to do a church at Savage Crossroad called Gateway Christian,
Yeah.
Kenneth Matthews.
Yep.
I was there one Saturday night, and a woman from South Dakota was there. She started prophesying to her folks.
Okay.
And I never seen nothing like that.
Right.
I never seen nobody prophesy over. So I was the last one, about 10:30. I was the last one that went up there.
Yeah.
And she looked at me. She said, "You were a genius." Halfway scared me to death. And she said, "You were the lecturers when you was in school." And I said, "What?" She said, "You were the lecturers. You were just you was a one subject person." And she said, "You was a genius in math." And I said, "God, how did that woman know that?"
Right.
I'm talking. I never seen nothing like this.
Right. You'd never seen someone prophesy.
Right.
Yeah.
And she said, "You was a genius in math." And she said, "But you couldn't get nothing else." And
Right.
I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she told me some more things in my life that I had forgot.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Okay." But before I started going down there, I had left. I was raised Baptist. And I left Ronson Church when the Pastor Presley preached one saved and always saved.
Right.
And you ought to have been in that Sunday school class, and next Sunday was us men discussing that.
Yeah.
I mean, that just didn't go over with nobody.
Right. Right.
It just didn't go over with nobody in that whole class. And I stayed there a little bit longer. Then I got asked in the rain, and I talking to the boys that were Masons. They said, "Yeah, Masons is a godly thing." So I joined the Masons, and I kind of liked that, but you had to learn a whole lot. But I had two boys that just stayed on you.
Yeah.
Really, I'm talking about 2 or 3 nights a week, 3 or 4 hours at a time. And I finally got it. And I was going through the chairs, getting ready to sit in the east to be the headmaster. I had been through the other 4 chairs, and of course I joined the Shriners and some more stuff that goes along with the masonry. And they had a Shriners in the East Station at Manio. So me and a bunch of boys from Suffolk Lodge, whatever Lodge,
Yeah.
we went down there, spent the night, and saw the East Station. That's a show. You got to be checked by 2 doctors to be improved to say that you could go through it.
Okay.
Because I was handicapped when I went through it, so I didn't get a whole lot of what.
Right. Right.
But that one at Nag's Head that was a real show.
Right.
I thought that was a show. And that night we went to eat, and I went back to the cabin. I got up by 4 o'clock. I couldn't sleep. And I cut the television on, and I picked up the bottle of Dr. mixed with some orange juice and took one swallow out of it. And I looked at the television. They were Herbert Armstrong,
Mm-hmm.
Worldwide Church of God.
Yep.
And I could not take my eyes off that man. I could not take my eyes off of him.
Right.
So I sit and drink down, and after a few minutes, I say 15 minutes looking at him, I felt something go in my toes, start with my toes, and slowly, I must say it took 5 minutes to go the whole way through my body.
Mm-hmm.
Slowly moving through my body. And I said, well, I'm having a heart attack.
Mm.
And I said, wait a minute. I ain't never heard talking to nobody having a heart attack.
From their toes.
Starting in the toes. And I read God got over to me then. I finally figured out what I said, okay, Lord, you changed my spirit. And I believe today that's when God changed my spirit. And we were supposed to go fishing that morning. And I told the boys, I ain't going fishing. I'm going home.
Wow.
I'm going home.
So you'd just been through the initiation rites, and then that night, the Holy Spirit touches you, and then you said, that's it, I'm going home.
That's it, I'm going home.
Yeah.
And I went home and told my wife what happened. At that time, we were eating dinner with my mama and daddy every Sunday. Eat dinner with them and with Paulette's mama at supper, That's the way it was.
Right.
We've been married. We had young.
Yeah. Now, for everybody that's listening here, he's talking about lunch and supper, right?
Yeah.
Everybody?
Yeah. There ain't no such thing as dinner. Yeah. But I went to Mama's house and I got there, and I was going to church in Portsmouth at that time on Saturday with Herbert Armstrong, too. And
yeah, so you started attending his church.
Yeah. And I fixed dinner. I finished. Mama would start dinner, and I fixed it. And they could get there from church to get ready to eat. And I told my wife, I said, I want you to go to a supper tomorrow and get me an NIV Bible, because I don't read and understand good, guys. I try to read the King James. Them words, just a lot of words in there don't make no sense to me.
Right.
And she went and got. I read that King James, that NIV Bible through 8 times in life. Last year I read the King James. He said, let my telephone read it to me, and I followed it. Just since the last 4 or 5 weeks, I just finished reading the New Testament again. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many times in my life I had read the New Testament.
Amen.
Cause I just don't like the Old Testament. That's all there is to it. I don't get that much out of it. I get some out of it.
Yeah.
But I just don't get that much out of it.
Yeah, you're focused on Jesus.
Yeah. The book of songs, I don't get nothing out of it.
Right.
So stuff like that, rhymes and mess, I just can't tell. I can't solve it. That's what.
Is that dyslexia kicking in?
Yeah. But I read it through, and I got a lot out of it, and that was really my life. Really started changing, and
Now, didn't you tell me about a man that come to talk to you in a field one time and prophesied to you about the Lord changing your spirit? You said you out a farm field one time, and you said this young African American gentleman came over to you and didn't even know you, and said to you that the Lord told him to tell you that He had changed your spirit there at that meeting.
I remember something like that, but it don't register right now.
Okay, yeah. You said you were at a farm field somewhere. You didn't notice. You didn't know the guy at all, and he just came right to you. And God used him to prophesy to you what had happened to you that night watching that television show.
I kind of remember that, but I can't place it right now. Because I haven't thought about that in a long time.
Yeah.
But I was blessed to marry. I told my wife the other night, I said, if angels have blood, you got some angel blood in it. I never heard that mentioned.
Yeah.
But that just come to me. If angels has blood, my wife has some angel blood in it. Well, she just blessing.
So and I just tell everybody here that so Paulette Eure, Brother George's wife, years ago, probably 15 years ago, we had a young teenage girl in the church that had kind of come off the streets and was coming from a broken home, and she started attending the church, and she was just young. She was probably 13 years old, and she got to know Sister Paulette, and Sister Paulette was just, being like a mama to her and being like just a grandma to her, And one day she said, I forgot how she said it. She said, I've never met someone who's regal before. And she said, but Miss Paulette, she is regal. I think of her like royalty. And I'd say that your wife, that word, when that young girl called her regal, and said that she.
That's when you started calling her that.
Yeah, because that fit her perfect. She carries herself like Queen Elizabeth or something. She carried herself like royalty.
Well, Pastor, I don't know nothing in my life she ever done wrong. And we had a 60th wedding anniversary, about 100 people there.
Yeah.
You were invited with y'all was in Texas,
That's
I
right.
believe.
Yeah.
And I asked the question, does anybody in here know anything my wife ever done wrong? And Paul Nixon, well, he was the best man in the wedding, about a year younger than I am. He stood up, said, "Yeah, she married you." Yeah, she married you.
That's all right. I'll let that one go. Yeah.
That fits. that fits.
Yeah. Yeah.
65
years y'all been married.
Been married 65 years. She's my third girlfriend, but when she moved in the area, she was like 5 or 6 years old from Rocky Hawk. First time I saw her, she had great big bright eyes and 2 pigtails, and it was something about that young girl that I couldn't get my eyes off of.
How old was she when you met her?
She's between 5 and 6. She don't even know
Are
herself.
you kidding me?
She don't even know herself.
Okay.
They moved in the neighborhood.
Right.
And they started coming to church.
Yeah.
And as we got older, we kept on looking at each other. And although we're going to school together, she was 4 grades behind me.
Okay.
And we meet going to have a play period. And, we night exercise. We meet going back, and we'd be for free. And Shirley, I'd be with both anybody. And you'd be surprised how young folks can turn their heads so far back and look at each other the whole way through. And it was just something.
She had your eye from the beginning.
It's just something about her that I always had. And of course, after I got hurt, I kind of, I didn't take my eye off her, but I often wondered. I said, will she marry a handicapped person? That.
Well, tell us how you got hurt. I don't think the people heard that.
Well, when you raised up in Gates County, when you got 18 years old, if you was in good health, you're going to be drafted.
Yeah.
If you was in good health, you're going to
go in the military.
And I had already started farming on my own a little bit. And so I decided I went across the draft board right across the road from the schoolhouse, open 3 hours a week.
Okay.
And the woman was named Bill Riddick, and I knew her. So I told Mr. Askey, I'm going across the road and checked on the draft. He said, go ahead, I can do anything I wanted to, in school. I went across there and I said, Ms. Riddick, how am I standing on the draft? She said, son, you know I can't tell you that. I won't know her to get back to school no way.
Right.
So I stayed in there about 30, 45 minutes, and this woman come in there to see her just to talk to her. And the first thing come out of Ms. Riddick's mouth was, we got 4 going next month, and he's one of them. Well, she didn't tell me. She told the woman.
Right.
I just had to be listening.
You just had to be listening.
Yeah. So I go back to school, across the road there. It was about 1 o'clock, and I had to go to school that day. And I said, Mr. Askey, I'm going to Jordan National Guard. So I went to Jordan National Guard. And I had been
you would have head him off.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I knew what the National Guard was. Cause I used to boys in it. You met one Monday night for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And you went to summer camp 2 weeks in the summer.
Yeah.
And after I got hurt, I stayed in there for over a year and a half.
Right.
Folks couldn't understand why I stayed in there. It was just in me. I want to know what's going on in this army.
Right.
And we went to Camp Stewart, Georgia.
Yeah.
And I went with him for
Yeah.
And I told him one night, I done it all with one hand. It wasn't pretty, but I could do it. And Howard Stanley was the captain of that high school that time. I don't know if you ever knew him or not. He's probably dead now because he was older than I was. But I enjoyed going that down there. I enjoyed being in the National Guard.
Yeah. But you got in a bad auto accident.
Yeah, I got this here now. I had went over there and got my clothes and got sworn in, and it was an old drugstore at Gates, right there on the corner in front of where the bank is now. It's toward I now.
Yeah.
and it was like two boys from a Suffolk was joining National Guard in the Hoskins to the Suffolk. They didn't like the one in Suffolk.
Okay.
So we met at that drugstore. It was two cars of us. It was five in the car with me and three in the car with the other car.
Okay.
And I'm going to my first meeting,
Right.
official meeting.
Right.
We get to 13. The car man pulls like a car gets in between this me and another car. We get on the other side of Tar Heel, and a man pulled right in front of us in a 1955 Chevrolet.
Hmm.
I was sitting in the passenger seat, and that's where the motor ended up at.
Okay.
That's a lick in a 55 Chevrolet to take a motor out.
Yeah.
I got through right. Everybody in the car got through right. I landed on the highway on my knee, my face, my elbow, and it popped my nerves up here in my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
They tell me you got a socket in your shoulder where your nerves go through that runs down your arms that control all your thing in your arms. And that's where mine broke at. Because it's been 68 years. I haven't moved a finger on that hand since that day.
Right.
But it don't really bother me.
Right.
God has blessed me. It does. I can truly say it does not bother me.
Hmm.
It gets real cold sometimes, aggravating, but as far as bother me, it don't really bother me. And God has given me the ability to see things ahead of time, and I can do most anything anybody else does.
Mm-hmm.
But God gave me the ability to see how to do things,
Right.
and I can see ahead of time.
Yeah.
I know what I got to do next.
Discernment.
Yeah, and that's the reason I can do everything.
Yeah.
And He should also give me the ability to figure out how to do things.
Okay.
I can look at something like, it might be pretty, but I got a way to do it. I can do it. It's all there is to it. But Pastor, I've been blessed all my life.
Yes, sir.
I look back on my life, and when I was farming, I was probably one of the best farmers right here.
Hmm.
I'll give you an example. I was the number one diabetes champion in the city of Suffolk, Gates County peanut champion.
Mm-hmm.
And one year we were meeting in a Holiday Inn in Wilmington, North Carolina, and the county agent was Zachary Harrell. And I knew all the doctors at State College because when something come out new, I was the go-to guy. They come down here, I'd try anything.
Right.
I don't care what it was that they want somebody to try it, I'd try it.
Mm.
And if I knew the head one at State, and Dr. Black was there, he said, "Boy, we're gonna start something new. We're gonna start a 5,000 pound peanut club. 5,000 pounds to the acre." County agent stood up to Dr. Black. "I hate to interrupt you, but we got a man here from Gates County that has made over 6,000 pounds on 300 and some acres." Dr. Black looked at Zach and he said, "Is that George?" That's how good I knew him. And he knew me. Because I had done some things. I had done some things that you weren't supposed to do
Right.
to peanuts and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Pat Pitts from Holland, from Virginia, saw what I'd done one day, and he says, "George, you got to tell me what you done." I said, "Pat, it ain't legal." He said, "Well, maybe I can make it legal." And I told him what I'd done, and he did. He made it legal for the next year, and most everybody that farmed peanuts done it from that.
Oh, wow. Now, how many years did you farm?
I farmed until I was 1995.
To 95?
Yeah, and I couldn't use this hand, and I had wore this hand out.
Yeah.
And me and my brother farmed together, and he got hurt that year.
Yeah.
And I went in there and lasted me working 12, 15 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a buy-sell agreement. One could buy the other night at 70 cents on the dollar, get an auctioneer to appraise it. And I said, "Brother, this is my last year." He said, "Let's sell." And that's all I wanted to hear.
Right.
But listen to this now. I put the word out, I wasn't going to farm no more. Me and my brother told everybody, "We ain't farming no more. This is our last year." Didn't nobody believe us. Didn't nobody believe us.
Well, you've been going for so many years.
And my neighbor Thomas White, I tell you, landfall called John Lane. He said, "George, I'm not going to farm next year. I want you to tend my land." Within 24 hours, every piece of land that I was renting, somebody had rented.
Wow.
The word got out there. I really wasn't going to farm.
Right.
When John put the word out, I wasn't going to farm.
Yeah.
But
Everybody jumped on it
Well,
then.
John picked what he wanted of it, you know.
Right, right.
But it was 24 hours.
Yeah.
Every bit was.
Well, at that time, you've been farming about 40 years. So.
Yeah. And I look back on it. I see why I was a good farmer. This is hard to believe, but the land I tend, in the summertime, it would rain on it, and half a mile down the road, it wouldn't rain.
Mm-hmm.
It happened so often. It was just a miracle.
Yeah.
And it was a miracle.
Yeah.
It was God it was God preparing me for what I could do in His kingdom now.
Yes.
I see it. I can see nothing like that back in them days.
Right.
I didn't really get into God until I walked through the doors of this church.
Hmm. But you'd been searching, though.
I've been looking for something all my life, but I didn't know what I was looking for.
Right.
I couldn't never put it together.
Right.
And I couldn't never get under a preacher that would say what I wanted to hear, you know,
Right.
or what I needed to hear.
Yeah.
But I've been in church all my life,
Yes, sir.
and if I don't go to church on Sunday, I feel it don't feel right.
Well, when I met you, you came that Sunday morning, and I don't know if you came that Sunday night or you came Wednesday night.
Come Wednesday night.
But I didn't even know you yet, and you just stood up in the middle of our service, and you said, "I've been looking for something for 27 years, and I finally found it."
Yeah.
That's what you said to
Yeah,
everybody.
that's what I said. I knew when I walked through them doors and heard you preach one time. Yeah, I got me a crazy preacher. I like him. I like it.
You said
I didn't
something
say I didn't say that like.
you know, but you said the truth.
Well, I've been out here about a year, and you looked at me one day and you said, "Brother George, you got a healing master on you."
Yeah.
And you know what I said to myself? Well, I know he's crazy as hell now. And the very words popped in my mouth. I got a healing master on me. I know you crazy. Ain't no question about it. And look back now. Look what happened.
Yeah, look how many people God used you to touch and heal, and yeah.
It's just amazing. I look back at my life.
Well, look, why don't you share some of that? Because I think the people watching want to hear what it's like when you begin to. Man had worked all his life in farming and doing what his family business was, and then all of a sudden Jesus starts getting a hold of his life, and he starts his ministry in his retirement years. Kind of sounds like Moses. And in your retirement years, you started your ministry, and God has used you so many times over in Franklin, Virginia,
Amen.
to do so many miracles. Why don't you share some of them?
Well, it's just amazing. It all started when the first miracle started a week after a miracle happened to me. My wife was in Wilmington, North Carolina, making baskets for a bunch of women. And I was sitting in my chair asleep, and the telephone rung, and I jumped up, and my ankle broke. I heard it pop. I used to have about 3,000 hogs on the farm at all times, and you be loading the hog. Didn't have them too often, and you hear a bone broke, and you see that hog start limping.
Yeah.
So you run up there and put a red mark on it.
Right.
They take him at the,
But you could hear it.
yeah, and he start limping too.
Yeah.
And so I knew when that broke. I knew when you take the hogs to the market, they take them out and make tankers out of them.
Right. Did they put a mark on you?
No, mark on me. But I got up and I started praying in the spirit. And if anything ever happened to you, like it happened to me real hard, the first thing you got to do is pee. And I said, I was praying in the spirit, and I said, Lord, I got to go to the bathroom. And I heard him Mr. Plain say the thing in the world, said, put it back in place and go. The first time I ever heard the Lord speak to me.
Right.
And I kind of shook my head. I think I heard it. You know, I wasn't even too sure I heard it.
Right, yeah.
So I put this leg here, I put this leg across here and reached over here and put that foot back in place best I could. Got out of my chair, stood up. It didn't hurt. I walked to the bathroom, come back and sit down. I said, I'll call my wife and tell her what happened. But I sit there probably another hour before I called her.
Wanted to make sure.
It started to swell a little bit.
Okay.
I look back now, and I really believe this here. I said, Lord, it need to be healed. I was praying in the spirit, and in my mind, I said, Lord, you need to heal it. but I didn't have sense enough to say, Lord, you need to heal the muscles and the tendons.
Yeah.
I didn't have sense enough to say that.
Yeah.
I believe today if I had said it,
All of it.
He would have healed all of it.
Right.
I believe it today.
Yeah. But he healed the
He
bone.
healed the bone.
Yep.
And Paul that company was take it to the hospital. And on the way to the hospital, she said, no, I'm going to take it to Dr. Patel, the knee doctor over there at Franklin. So I go in there and he x-rays it. And he said, I can see where it was broke. He said, I can definitely see where it was broke, but look like everything's in place. But you're so bad, I'm going to put one of these socks on you. You've probably seen them that goes on your foot and your ankle, and the heel's right.
Mm-hmm.
I got home. That's the first thing I done, pulled that thing off. It was hurting so bad. I really had a swelling,
Right.
And a week later, I went back over there to see him, and he x-rayed it again. He said, it's really in good shape. And I come out of his office, and you go to the left. This was in his old office, not where his new office is now. You go to the left and go out the doors, and I walked behind everybody. And I got back there, and I said to myself, what am I doing back here? By that time, the door opened with a colored lady coming in there, limping a 90-degree angle with two 1-foot-long walking canes. Screaming. I'm talking about hollering. Lord, I can't live like this here. I mean, that woman was hollering.
She's in pain.
In pain. And God said, go and pray for her. I heard this plain as anything in the world. I never heard God talk to me.
Right.
But all this happened all of a sudden.
Right.
So I walked up to her and I said, Sister, God told me to pray for you. And she's over in a 90-degree angle. And she looked up to me. She said, I see the glory of the Lord on you. I ain't never heard nobody say nothing like that to me.
Right.
So I put my hand on her back and started praying out loud with like 5 or 6 folks sitting there waiting to see the doctor. And as I started praying, she started straightening up. And when my hand got on her shoulder, she slapped her hand on my shoulder and started praying back. Lord Jesus, I'm healed. I knew you were going to heal. I could hear that sister right there. Lord Jesus, I knew you were going to heal me. Thank you, Lord Jesus. 2 fools, excuse me, Lord, stand there praying like light. But that's okay.
Wow.
I gave her a hug, and Pastor, this is how amazing God is. Before I got out the door, the nurse called her back to see the doctor, and she walked just like you walked.
Wow.
And
the power of God.
And I had been in the hospital over there a lot, different things. The one that I'd been there about 2 weeks ago one time.
Yeah.
And about a month later, I was in Dr. Scott Bray's office, and I went up the elevator with the black couple, and the woman was limping real bad. And I said, Sister, do you know Jesus? And she says, yeah, but he gave me this stroke before I find him. She said, I didn't know Jesus until he gave me that stroke. That's caused her to walk like that. She said, but I know Jesus now.
Right.
And I went to the doctor's office one day. We went to different offices. And I come back out about 45 minutes later with 3 folks standing there 4 folks standing there. That woman and her husband and 2 more folks standing there. The door of the elevator was open. I walked in the elevator. And the time I got in there, they said, it ain't worked in about 15 minutes. And that woman said, I can't walk down them steps. The step was right there next door to them.
Right.
She said, I can't walk down them steps. And the way she was limping out, I think she was telling the truth.
Yeah.
So I felt, I don't know how to explain it. Sometimes you just feel like God is on you.
Yeah.
I pointed my finger at that controller. I said, in the name of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, go to work. Pastor, when that word work came out of my mouth, that door started shutting. I hit the open button, and I said, y'all come on in with riding name with Jesus. I will never forget what that called me. He said, son, I've heard talk of this all my life, but I've seen a miracle today.
Right.
He said, and I can't wait to get back to church to tell the folks it is true.
Wow. Yeah. So many people want to believe in miracles, but never seen one. Never heard the Lord speak to them. Right?
Yeah. And after that, for a year or 2 in the hospital, I get in there once in a while, and I prayed for 2 or 3 doctors over there. Because the word got out. That crazy George. I look back, it just ain't real. I don't understand it.
Right.
But I know that God don't want me to understand it.
Hmm.
If He did, He'd tell me.
That's right.
I really believe that.
That's right.
But I want to understand it. I want to understand it. But God ain't gonna let me understand it.
Yeah.
He'll let me understand when I get to heaven.
That's right.
But okay. And Franklin, I was over there week before last, and I love to eat at Fred's restaurant breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
I get a Western omelet and potatoes cooked on the grill with onions and iced tea for $10.
Yeah.
And every waitress in there knows me. So I talk about Jesus a little bit.
A little bit.
And I went in there week before last. I got to the door opened, and I had this hat on. And I read the man's photo hat, and he looked at me. He said, "Sir, will you pray for my hand?" I said, "Yeah, be glad to." So I prayed for his hand, and talking to him 2 or 3 minutes. One of the waitresses come out and said, "Mr. Eure, your breakfast is on table 6." She said, "I saw you get out of the truck across the road." That's what happened there. Telling me, most of the time, if the tea is sitting on the table, by the time I get to it. They do it. I don't know. Tell them what I want. Everyone knows exactly what I want.
They already know.
She said,
Yeah.
"Mr. Your breakfast is on table 6." I said, "Sorry, I said I got to go and eat." And that same day, I went over there to carry one of my trucks to get. I had carried to get inspected, and I had 3 or 4 lights. And the woman asked me, "Can you bring it back?"
Mm-hmm.
She said, "We're kind of tight today." And she said, "We didn't take your sticker off." You know, she said, "People like you that we don't take your sticker off. They're supposed to take it off before they start inspecting." Right. But she said, "A lot of time we don't take." She said, "We didn't take your sticker off." She said, "Whenever," she said, "next Wednesday," and I was in there, and this man was in there, and I tried to talk to him. I noticed he couldn't talk, and I finally figured out he had a stroke.
Oh wow.
And while I was waiting to get my truck fixed, the woman come in that knew him,
Mm-hmm.
and she and him kind of come okay, and you could understand him a little bit.
Okay. Yeah.
And he got ready. His vehicle got ready. And he told him he was ready, and he stood up. I said, "Sir, can I pray for you?" And he said, "Please." And I said, "I want to put my hand on your throat."
Mm.
And when I done that woman jumped up. She said, "Please, please, please." She said, "I want to be part of this." So
Wow.
I prayed for him, and she said, "Amen and amen and amen."
Wow.
And I don't know where he got healed or not.
Right.
I don't know where the man's hand got healed or not.
Right.
But I have prayed for in my lifetime. In the last 25 years, 20 years, I have prayed for a lot of folks in Walmart. And they don't have them too often, but and most of them is colored folks. That's what always surprised me.
Mm.
Once in a while, a colored woman comes to me and said, "Thank you for praying for me." I said, "I got healed."
Wow.
And I
You
don't
bump into them again, and they tell you.
I don't even recognize them.
Right.
I don't know how to do
Yeah.
it. And that happened a lot of times. "Thank you for praying for me." But
Wow.
the one that got me really that shook me was Bobby in Buffalo. He goes, "He's so light now." But I've been knowing him for 30, 35 years. That's where I carry my car to get work done.
Yeah.
And I walked in there one day, and he said, "George, thank you for praying for me." And I said, "Wait a minute. I ain't never prayed for you. You know, somebody you know that good. If you pray for them,
You'd remember
you
it.
remember it."
Yeah.
I said, "Bobby, I don't know if I'm praying for you." "Oh, you didn't pray for me. You prayed for my daughter." Okay, I remember her daughter and his wife were the bookkeepers.
Okay.
And one day she walked in there, and I could tell she was pregnant. And I went and knocked on the door, and I said, "Ma'am, can I pray for you?" And I said, "Well, I pray to take the curse of Adam and Eve off of it, and ever easy to deliver." And Bobby said, "Oh, I didn't mean you to pray for me. You prayed for my daughter." He said, "That baby was born 15 minutes after she walked in the hospital."
Wow. Wow.
It's just things like it just happens. Cause I don't know a lot of the one that tickled me to death though was having that at Grant's store.
Uh-huh.
I was having Ed in there picking beans, and then you're always behind. It was land 18, and we picked up about 8 o'clock, 8:30, and I stopped at Grant's to get me something to drink on the way home. and the woman behind the clerk had a goiter. My wife had had two goiters.
You knew what it was.
I knew what it was.
Yeah, yeah.
And I said, ma'am, can I pray for your goiter? And she said, please. I said, no, man, you got to come right here. I want to put my hands on that goiter.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I put my hands on it and prayed for her. About 3 or 4 years later, I went back in there one day. I don't stop in there very often. And one of the clerks in there said, ain't you the man that prayed for so-and-so that had a goiter? Yeah. She said, it went away.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, it amazes me. I don't know if I told you this or not. You know, the Bible said that Jesus couldn't heal nobody in his home time.
Right.
But me and my wife healed Pastor Pastor Michael Brink's wife right here.
Yes.
So have I done something to God? That's what John the 14th chapter says.
What does it say? Tell us.
So it says, you can do greater things than Jesus is talking to. You
That's right.
can do greater things than he done.
That's right.
And that when I got that in my head about 15 years ago, that's when God started using me.
Yeah. Well, so when God had me prophesy to you that he was giving you a healing ministry,
yeah.
and you couldn't wrap your mind around it, he gave you that verse to prove to you it was true.
Yeah.
He said, greater things that I've done shall you do, right?
And I just thought about that about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I said, God, have me and my wife done something greater than you done?
And he couldn't heal nobody in his hometown, and you did.
And she was here, 7 or 8 weeks ago when Ken North was here.
Yep.
And I said, Denise, are you still here? She said, yep. I just had to ask her.
You had to ask.
I had to ask her. I couldn't help her. But I don't know how many people I've prayed for and healed, and I ain't healed none of them. God has used me.
He's used you, right?
He used me to heal them.
He's used you.
And I probably won't never know. It don't make no difference.
Nope.
Because
Well, maybe you'll run into some of them in heaven, and they'll say, "Hey, you're the one that God used."
I've been to see this boy, Mac Jackson. You probably know him.
Yeah.
He's been in the bed now for 7 months.
Yeah.
And me and him never been real close friends, but we formed. He just turned 95 years old.
Okay.
First this month, and I've been stopping in there for the last year or two, seeing him once in a while. Not real often.
Yeah.
And I knew he was stopped in there last fall one time. His wife said he's in a nursing home at Windsor, North Carolina. And I said, oh, that don't sound good, you know. But they got him home, and I went in there to see him and prayed for him real often. And I was laughing. I had the other day, we were joking. I said, now, Matt, I tell you now, I know we're going to meet in heaven. And as far as I'm concerned, we got a contest to see who will get there first. Because that made him that. The man been laid in bed, can't get out of bed.
Yeah.
Like, man,
He's ready to go. Yeah.
He's ready to go.
Yeah.
And he's a Christian. Ain't no more question in my mind about that.
He loves the Lord.
He's ready to go. But it's just amazing how God put me there.
Yeah.
And I hadn't seen him in 10 or 15 years.
Wow.
And I just stopped in there one day, but about 2 years ago.
95. So Brother George, we wrap it up here because man, what an amazing story, amazing life. So you didn't, after 27, 30 years of searching, you finally find a place where the gospel hits you, you come fully committed to Christ, and then not long after that, you get called into ministry in your 60s. In the last 20 years, 15, 20 years, you've been doing this ministry for the Lord in your 60s, 70s, 80s now, okay? Can you just look at that camera and just close it out here? Can you give advice to people about the people that go, well, I can't, that's only for preachers on TV or this or that. What can you say to people about letting Jesus use them, even in their old age?
I've always believed since I was probably 15, 18 years old that I associated my life with Moses because I couldn't talk.
Right.
I never put it together, but I just always associated my life with Moses. And as life went on, I've been in church all my life. I can truly say I didn't get a whole lot out of none of it. Mm-hmm. But I was looking for something. I had no idea what I was looking for. Mm-hmm. But when I come to this church over here, I find it. That's where God used me. But I look at you and everyone listen. I don't care how old you are. you can be just like me. You can be looking for something for 60 years or more and have no idea what it is. And all of a sudden, one word from God
Change your life forever.
can change your life forever.
That's right.
And it's amazing change. It don't bother me to walk up to strangers and ask them, do you know Jesus?
Mm-hmm.
It don't bother me to pray for strangers. And I look you each one of y'all right straight in the face and tell you, I don't feel like I know how to pray. That's a true statement. And I know one more man in this church I heard say that. I've heard John Wynn say that. And I really do not feel like I know how to pray. And I've had some folks tell me that one of the most beautiful prayers I ever heard after I pray. And it just blows your mind. It's all
The power of God.
You know it is.
The power of God.
God can use anybody.
That's right.
And if you got a feeling like I have, that something you're liking something, and you know it's tied up with God, but you have no idea at all what it is, don't quit looking.
Don't quit looking.
Because He might be God might have intended for me to never be where I'm at until I got this age.
Wow.
I can look back, like I said when I was farming a while ago, it would rain on my crops, it wouldn't rain on nobody else's. God was preparing me for what I'm able to do today.
All in the timing of God.
I can see it.
Amen.
I had no idea then.
Yeah.
So don't be surprised what God can do in your life.
Well, let's that word right there. Let's end on this word here. Jesus said, "Ask, seek, and knock."
Yeah.
And this man was seeking for decades, and he never gave up. I love what he just said. He said, "Don't give up, because when the time's right, the day of salvation comes, and Christ changes everything. And you never know, you might be starting your healing ministry in your 60s. God bless you, Brother George. God bless y'all for joining us. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you next time right here on Straight to the Heart with Eric Your Heart.
Okay. Yep.